answer your question?
Absolutely.
Because if it doesn't, I'm afraid you're going to run over here.
Well, I just want to, I get the sense that this is just a real genuine book, and we talked about this earlier, and I just wanted to make sure that people understood that this isn't just your run-of-the-mill celebrity bio tale thing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why it resonates that way is because A, I did write it completely myself. B, there's a great story there, and like I said, it's not just for wrestling fans. It's for you guys are late. You guys are late. And she's wearing an I Love NY shirt. It's okay. We're just kidding. We're all friends here. You're signing in the guest book. Tyson, I'm trying to tell a story right now. I'm just kidding. The story I had to tell, I think, was so unique. And it's almost like the last of the Mohicans of a guy coming into the wrestling business this way. Because, I mean, it really is, things aren't like this anymore. The business has changed, and whether that's for better or for worse is irrelevant. This is the way I did it. This is the story to tell. So I think that's why I think it hit the New York Times bestseller list, is because people that aren't wrestling fans are enjoying this book. And that was very important. Like I said, I didn't want to write this as a tried and true autobiography. I was born in 1970. Boy, was it cold outside. I played with the snowing. It was like, oh my goodness, it is beautiful. You know, I didn't, like, every time I read an autobiography, I don't like that part. Like, I read Scar Tissue, Anthony Kiedis' autobiography. It was a great book. I read Andy Summers' One Train Later, awesome book. But the first 50 pages, I kind of just like, and then get to the real stuff. Now he's in the band. I want to see what they have to say. And I'd just seen the movie Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash movie, and I thought it was really interesting how they focused just on a certain section of his life. You know, when you get a guy like Johnny Cash, you can't put his whole life into a 2-hour movie. And not that I'm, you know, in the same category as Johnny Cash. It's the same idea. I didn't want to write my whole story. It was just too much stuff, and I didn't want to downplay any of the earlier years that I had, which to me was some of the most interesting stuff, because there was no internet back in those days, and there was no insider newsletters. If there was, I didn't know about them. So I think there's a lot of my career that really no one really knows. They know Jericho went to Japan, they know to Mexico, but they don't really know just how long I was there for and all the different experiences that I had. And to me, that was some of the most interesting stuff. So I originally wanted to just write the book about my time in Mexico. I was just gonna, that was it. When I pitched the idea, actually out here to my book agent, he thought that was a great idea, and I think I was originally going to call it like a Lion's Tale, you know, my life south of the border or something stupid like that. And then when we pitched it to it was really interesting. This is kind of a lot of information, but you guys have to listen to me because I have the mic. I went and had my meeting with the agent, and then somehow it got out that Jericho was wanting to write a book, or was going to write a book. I got an email from Warner Brothers Publishing and said, you know, if you're writing this book, we want it. Just tell us, and you know, so about a week later, through the magic of the computer, I had a book deal with Warner Brothers. So, and when I pitched it to them, I said, just Mexico, just Mexico. And they said, we want a little bit longer. So I thought, well, maybe interesting, you know, Mexico, the first 6 years, Germany, Japan, my training. And then I thought, you know what? The organic story here is me following this dream of being a WWE superstar. So why not have it begin with, this is my dream, the middle is getting there, and the end is I get there. You know, I win. Everybody's happy. I get the pot of gold. I ride off in the sunset. End of story. Now, obviously, I could continue on picking up literary seconds after the last one left off. So they're like, well, how come you didn't write about WWE stories? You know, there just wasn't room for it in this. And that's another reason why I was very happy to do this book on my own outside of the WWE world, because if you write a book with them, it's going to focus on WWE, which is cool. But this story I thought was so, you know, so much more to tell, because there's, when you guys read it, you'll see what I'm talking about, because you won't, it's hard to understand just the stuff that I went through, and that's just the way that it used to be, going to all these different places and riding. You know, there's so many great stories from Mexico. I used to take a bus from where I was working in Guadalajara, take the bus from Mexico City to Guadalajara. And some bus lines would have first-class bus lines. So you have a nice little seat, you have a little sandwich, and watch a movie. I watched Gemelos once, which is twins. But other ones would just be like a school bus that you would be riding down the highway, and they would pull over and stop just for anybody at any random location. Some guy would be standing on the street, and they'd pick him up, and you know, the guy would sometimes have a donkey or a goat or a dog or a cat or a chicken or a parrot that actually spoke, like, ¿Qué pasó? ¿Cómo estás? We're sitting on this bus and there's like no seat belts. It's a school bus, and there's 2 in each seat. There's people standing in the aisleways, and there's animals clucking, and there's cages of birds, and there's poop everywhere, and you know, las pupas. You know, you have to have some real commitment to wanting to do this if that's what you're dealing with. So that's kind of where the whole idea came, to kind of give people an insight of one guy's journey to do this.
Should we open it up on the floor? Does anybody have any questions?
I found it interesting when reading your book how you were in WCW and you said you were waiting for the call to WCW Nitro, and how when you finally got that call, you did the Nitro dance. So that if we wanted to see it, we can ask for it.
This is day 18 of my tour, and people have done their homework. I get asked that, and it's not like a real choreographed like thriller, you know. It was basically just me marching around my apartment, just like going, Nitro. They never called me to be on the show, and I would literally sit by the phone like a jilted lover waiting for the call from the you know, the significant other, like, please call. The phone, hello? No, I don't want any cable. You know, that's what it was. And then finally, when they actually were there, it was Paul Orndorff. It goes, Paul Orndorff, you're going to be on Nitro this week. Yes, Nitro. Look at myself in the mirror and just like, Nitro. I'd be looking back going, because it just wasn't doing anything there. It was like just the lamest thing ever. And it was pissing me off because I wanted to be, you know, doing something. So it was very exciting for me to actually be on the show. Then I'd go and lose, you know, in a minute to sequel pay or something at the end of it. But still, it's good question. Good homework.
Hi, Chris. Good to see you tonight.
Thank you.
Out of all the towns that you've been at wrestling, which one's your favorite, and which match would you say is your favorite or best match that you've been in?
There's a lot of great towns. I used to love wrestling in Japan, especially Tokyo. The wrestling fans were awesome. They were very studious. They wouldn't make a lot of noise. They would just kind of watch, and they would wear, you know, suits and ties, and you know, you're out there wrestling and having this match, and normally people would be making a lot of sound and noise, but these people would be quiet and silent. You'd be thinking, like, do I suck? Like, what's going on? No one's making any noise. But they would watch, and they'd appreciate kind of like the reversals of the holds and how things worked and how you were doing the things you were doing. And then if they saw something they liked, they'd go, oh. Everyone would go like this. And goes, oh. And then once they start getting into the match, they would start buzzing, oh. And then if you had like a false finish where you counted, you go 1, 2, oh. 1, 2, oh. And then you're quiet again. That's how you knew you were getting them in. So you would have to, you know, you'd work your matches differently in Japan because it was a different culture. And once you get over there, you know, when in Rome, do as Rome does, or whatever the saying is. So that's how you have to adjust to the different cultures that you were in. Same thing in Mexico. It's much more of a cartoonish atmosphere, and there'd be a lot of things that, if you guys saw it, it makes no sense. It would just look preposterous. But that's the way people did things. So that's another reason why I had all these different colors to paint with when I was doing my matches, because I'd been to all these different places and had all these different experiences. I could fall back on that time in Mexico I did this, that time in Japan I did this, or just learning how to work different kinds of crowds. Because even in the States, I mean, a Los Angeles crowd could be different from a New York crowd, could be different from a St. Louis crowd, could be different from a Sheboygan crowd. I mean, just whatever type of crowds you have to know how to deal with them. It's not like being an improv comic or a jazz musician. You got to just work together and just feel it, and you don't really know what's coming up, and you shouldn't know. And that's one reason why I was always able to do that, because I'd worked in all these different places. And then there's other towns like Matamoros, Mexico, which is about 2 hours from Monterrey, Mexico.